10 minutes to 8 o'clock. And you guys are tuned in to the Current Affairs Show. I am your host, standing in for Linda Kumalo. I go by the name of Sui or Suicide _ PTM on social media. And today's topic is quite an eye-opener for myself, I won't lie. And my question right now is, am I a feminist? And if I'm a feminist, does it mean I'm less of a man? So many questions. That's just my question. I know you guys had a lot of questions off air.
Can I answer that for you?
Yeah.
You are a feminist. If you in any way have any interaction with women, you're a feminist. Because I'm a feminist because I have a mother who has struggled to be a single mother for all these years and rage against a system where, she cannot reach the echelons of her job, who's also faced oppression from apartheid that meant, she could not go to a university like I am going today. I am a feminist because I have friends who've experienced rape, so I'm a feminist because I have sisters and friends who want better jobs for themselves, who deserve equal pay. In fact, even some might deserve better pay than some men, maybe not myself, but yeah. Yes, so you're a feminist because you cannot exist in a space with women and say that you are not a feminist. For me, you have to be, at the very least, even if you don't identify as a feminist, you have to be someone who's concerned with women's rights.
Oh, so I can buy the t-shirt without feeling guilty.
Yes.
No, not at all. And I don't think standing up for women's issues and women's rights makes you less of a man. I mean, the more you stand up for people who are oppressed or people who have issues, whether it's poverty or healthcare, it makes you a better human being. I don't think standing up for anyone should be seen as being less of anything, but more.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. But I mean, off air we had so many topics, and I just realized there's so many faces that you guys mentioned it. Where I once said, I used to see the topic of women issues that women deal with on a day-to-day basis. I saw it as like maybe one whole big thing, maybe they're just treated unfairly, but there happens to be so many cracks in this. And you guys spoke about contemporary feminism, commercializing feminism. There were so many other isms that I've never heard of before. Like, what is yours, Princess?
It's called Africana womanism.
Wow, what a mouthful.
So, lovely name.
Do we have to individually deal with them one by one? Or is there a set way to maybe bring the message across and fix this whole mess?
Well, I think Africana womanism, feminism, and sort of for people who don't want to identify as feminists but still say, I care about women's rights but I'm not a feminist. It's all just about women's rights. So maybe we should start by discussing women's issues in today's world, international and local, and the varying degrees, and how campaigns to make that better, feminism, Africana womanism, various other things, fit into that, and if it's helping, or if labels are being too restrictive.
Let's just say something.
Yes.
You see, basically the difference here between feminism and Africana womanism is that instead of focusing on women's issues, people who subscribe to Africana womanism believe that black people are still fighting for the right of existence as a people. So they feel like it's more important to sort of fight against racism and classism, right? Before fighting for female issues. Not that there isn't any problem with gender, there is a problem with gender, but they feel like fighting for female issues first would divide the black struggle. So as a people, black people ought to self-define. Hence, some black women have sort of defined themselves as Africana womanist, not feminist, because feminism has been driven by the agenda of white women. They're fighting for specific things, right? Hence, you find that there are black women who feel like feminism comes to divide the struggle of black people because it's now making the black man the enemy. Yet he is not the enemy because the black man historically has never had the power to subjugate his female counterpart.
Okay.
He has never had the power to tell the female that you're not leaving the house, you cannot take my children, because they don't have that power. Hence, there is this sort of division between the idea of feminism and black women subscribing to it. Although, it does make sense. There is someone who can counter argue and say, no, but then feminism makes sense because gender is an issue even in black communities. No one is saying it's not an issue, but it's just that what is more important right now for black people? Is it to champion female issues, or is it to champion community issues, the race issue, the class issue?
If I may just add, and I think you have something to say as well. It feels like there can be like different forms of feminism from what I've picked up, and I think maybe they can coexist with one another. But I think maybe the way the problem lies is that some of us don't identify with the next person's form of feminism, and then that way the clash comes in, and it feels like you don't stand for what I stand for, not understanding the person's situation. Where I'm coming from a point where I cannot afford to be a feminist on a gender level because I'm fighting against my racial issues and so forth. And I think that maybe giving the understanding and maybe understanding each other's struggles may kind of allow you to help the next person even better.
Well, for me, the most practical example I can give you of why we have a problem with a universal feminism. If you recall, a few months back, there was that spur incident of the woman and the man. Okay, so the woman is a black female, and the man is a white man. So they have an altercation, which has a lot of symbolic violence in it. And what happens after the effect? You have white women who band together with white men to say that they are no longer going to Spurs. They are, what do you call it when people no longer want to go to a place? Boycotting Spur because the man was treated so horribly. When at the very basis of it, of seeing that incident, you're supposed to, you're not just supposed to just see this black woman, you're supposed to see a woman who is physically at a disadvantage against this man who's towering against her. If that altercation had gone any other way and she had ended up being hit, do you see what I'm saying? That we say that because feminism now becomes fractured in the sense that people now see in the way that people see in themselves what they see in this scenario. You see a black woman as a black person, you say, no, you know what, I'm against this. I mean, for some reason, a white woman could see that and say, you know what, that man was right. I don't know how, but anyways, yes. So because feminism has to fight for all these different things, it ends up having to fight for scraps instead of actually looking at it as we need to fight the structures firstly that make feminism difficult to exist in our society, and then we need to have a feminist pedagogy of teaching people.
Whoa, that word. Whoa. Help me.
Pedagogy is a way of learning.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, so we need to change it. We need to change the way we enculture young boys and girls. The other day I was at Pick and Pay, and this Indian man was so angry at his son because he picked up a little fairy crown and put it on his head. It's like, no, those are not for boys, those are for girls. Things like that. Those are symbolic violence to people's identities. Those are things that make it that we perform gender in a very specific way. We ingrain those. We take those words and that informs how we treat other people. So yeah, we don't just need to look at it in one way. If we're just going to say we're going to look at feminism in race or we're going to look at feminism this way, it's going to be problematic. We need overhaul structure of structures and of people's thinking. So yeah, burn the children's book, the little pictures of Cinderella in them, because they give a misguided performance of gender.
I agree with that, and I think gender stereotypes, we were talking about it earlier, they don't just restrict women, they restrict men as well. And if we stop thinking of gender as two different sides of the scale, but rather as a spectrum, and start to define each other by what we are instead of what we're not, everyone will be liberated. And I think although we need to sort of, you're saying fighting in all the different sections is going to make it hard, that is so true, but also feminism can't be a one-size-fits-all, because every woman is different. And as we were talking about, everyone has different issues and everyone is oppressed in a different way. So it's such a challenging thing. You're trying to find a way to make this movement universal, but at the same time specific. And that's actually an oxymoron.
It is.
So it's crazy. I think in a way, for me, as I said earlier, it's about individual progress. So is it actually helping women? Is it helping individuals? And you can have as many philosophical talks about whatever you want, but if it's not finding a way to like move society, then something needs to change. What are we talking about?
Feminism. And I mean, I think first is first. Obviously, like talking about it as where it all starts, and then finding solutions, campaigns, and so forth. Otherwise, we're just gonna be just ramping on about the same topic, and we're gonna be lost in a cycle forever and forever. Because we're almost at the end of our show, or rather, we are at the end of the show. Are there practical solutions, or if I can just get a last word from every single one of you guys as to where you want to take this movement, and if there's a solution in mind?
Well, like I say, gender is a problem both in feminism and in African womanism. And gender is not biological, it is taught. So really the gender issues that are there, they can be untaught. I mean, to quote an African happy feminist, she says that we teach our boys to not show their feelings, not to be vulnerable, to be hard man. And we teach our girls to aspire to marriage, yet we don't teach the boys the same thing. So what if we raised our boys the same way we raised our girls? It's okay to be emotional as a man. Don't put masculinity in a box and say this is what a man is, because we also raised girls to end up catering to those egos, fragile egos of men. So I guess the solution will be changing how we raise our boys and how we raise our girls. We must raise them the same. It shouldn't matter, because the only difference between a boy and a girl is just your sexual organ, not your emotions. We are all emotional. We are all hormonal, really. You've got a sister, and somewhere, there's an imbalance at some point in your life, just as I have an imbalance. So I guess it's a matter of moving away from sticking to saying this is what a real man is, and this is what it means to be a real woman, because that's what gender does. It's prescriptive. It tells you what you ought to be rather than what you are. So if we had to change that.
Oh, thank you, Princess. That was very insightful. I like that. I got feelings now. All right. And from you guys, what would you guys like to share?
In terms of practical solutions, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And just adding to the putting people in boxes, I mean, a lot of women feel, or there's a message out there that if you don't have children in your life, you're like a failure as a woman. But if you have a 6-year-old bachelor who's a millionaire, no one says to him, "Oh, do you feel unfulfilled because you haven't had children?" It's not the same thing. So I think it gives people a feeling of emptiness when you're trying to aspire to a mold that you don't fit into. In terms of sort of larger social issues, I think that a lot of the time there's a question asked, do we still need feminism, or do we live in a post-feminist society? And to that question, I'd just say, what issues are facing women today? And do you think we're there yet? Do you think that we're in a place in society where we can say that the violence historically perpetrated to women doesn't exist anymore? And for me personally, I don't think we're in that place. And I think international issues like sex trafficking in Asia and Northern Africa, where millions of young girls and young women are taken from their villages and their homes and put into brothels and never see their families again. And it's not an issue on the international stage. In sort of Central Africa, women who develop fistulas, which is when they're raped, or if they have complicated pregnancies, their reproductive organs are seriously injured, and so the waste can't stay in their body, so they stink, and they're outlawed by the towns and villages. But that's not talked about either. In terms of South Africa, I mean, the really high rape rate, which, I mean, thank goodness there are books being written about it now. It's such a topic of conversation. So all those issues, do we still need feminism? I mean, if it's not on the main stage, there's not enough being done. So I think in that way, I think we need it, because there's so much that can be better.
And my guy, to wrap things up.
For me, with any movement, you need dynamicism. You need to make actual change. You know, just talking about it isn't enough. We need to be implementing, and everyone has a role to play. Whether it is teaching your children how to treat women or how to be treated as women, that's your role to play there. If you are someone who is working within corporate, how are you making it so that this space is more inclusive to women? How are you making it that there's a balance? So we all have to be, as I said in the beginning, self-reflexive of how are we being the change that we want to see in this context? How do we become a vehicle for feminism? It's not just by wearing t-shirts. It's good to do that, but we have to, at some point, everyone has to have a practical thing that they can say, you know, this is what I do to try and empower women. Yes, so there has to be dynamicism, and we have to just stop being so concerned with defining things and sort of finding a good way to articulate who we are as the branches of feminism, those sort of things, because that's what happens with any movement. Any movement gets stagnant because what the majority will do is, okay, we hear you say you want a voice, but what kind of voice do you want? And then you spend centuries trying to define your voice when actually you should be working for exactly what you want, not who you want to be, but being that, if that makes sense.
Guys, it's been wonderful. I had a great time, yeah. I really appreciate you guys, having me as your host on the Current Affairs shows. And definitely, this is a topic that never ends. We need to tackle it, and like you guys said, action has to be,
Action speaks louder than words.
There we go.
Always.
Otherwise, man, from me, it is Sui. I'll catch you guys in a few minutes on the Prime Tech Madness show. Otherwise, definitely, this was a night to remember. Music by DJ Frankie and